Saguaro junior linebacker and team captain Brandt Casey is one of the toughest players in Arizona, something that stems from his childhood being the youngest of 5 brothers.
It's always football. It's how we just lived, and we trained with each other, everything, always around it, something we loved growing up doing, and all my brothers always pushed me to just be good at it.
Well, the biggest thing is, we have a big age gap from the first to the last, from Brian to Brandt, of 14 years. So as we find out things like parents do, stuff that the boys did unbeknownst to us was crazy.
On the field today, Brandt tries to emulate his older brother Shem, who was the third born of the 5 and was a standout safety during his high school tenure, playing for his father Steve at Horizon.
He played with a lot of heart. He's one of those kids, as coaches always say, you're going to be, are you injured or are you hurt? Shem played injured.
Passionate, relentless, one of the most hard-hitting safeties I've seen play high school football, and I just wanted to try to compare it to what he did on the field.
Life on the field for Shem was star-studded, but off the field it was a different story.
I believe it was his sophomore or junior year he started getting into drugs and stuff really heavily. We really didn't know how to handle it at first because none of my parents really understood what was actually happening.
My wife, who has got the kindest heart in the world, realized that, had that intuitive instinct that there was something wrong in her gut. There's something wrong. And of course, me saying no, there's nothing there. So we didn't have a united front, which really hurt us at first. It hurt us for a long time with that.
I remember one time he was high on something, and he was on the street, and he was just walking all over the place, didn't know, he was saying stuff that I didn't understand, and it wasn't himself, and that's when I knew there was something wrong.
He'd been in and out of the house probably 5 to 10 times, where he'd been kicked out of the house or he left and would come back. It was a cycle where he would come home for sleep and food, and then he would take off. Sometimes he would take our vehicle. He took things that weren't his, like most addicts do. That was the one thing we found out, is that it's a very common story to hear. The only thing that changes is the names.
He was living in New Mexico at the time with my grandma, trying to get his life straightened up. And he was going to school, trying to finish school, started getting into God and stuff, and it's hard to get away from that stuff. And he was addicted and attracted to him.
I know that Donna wasn't at the house, and Grandpa called me and told me that Shem had passed away, and I didn't know what to say. My heart sunk. I knew she was on her way home, and I was going to have to give her the news when she came home. I remember her coming in, and I was standing in the garage, and she goes, "What's the matter?" And she saw it in my face that there was something wrong, and then I told her, and obviously we broke down.
At first, I really didn't want to believe it. It was hard hitting me because we were so close when we were growing up. He was like one of my closest brothers, and just didn't seem real to me. It seemed like a dream.
At that moment, you don't feel like there's any hope for you. A lot of emotions, a lot of questions being asked, and can't get the answer for them, and just kind of going through a lot of hard time.
I was at the time coaching youth football with the Argonauts program, and Brandt was a 6th grader when he joined. And it was later in the season when they got the news that his older brother Shem had passed away. I got to see the team that Brandt was on really rally around him, and also see him use football as a way to kind of channel his emotions and get through the things that he was dealing with.
Brandt and older brother Trey, who graduated from Pinnacle last year, missed one Argonaut game after Shem's passing. In their first game back on the same day, they both returned interceptions for touchdowns.
And all our buddies that were there said that was Shem watching over him. I mean, Trey took his about 80 yards and Brandt took his about 40.
Since it meant something to me greater than just being a game, that I wasn't promised another day, and that's when I knew I had to work harder and harder each day, because you never know when your last day can be.
Brandt knew what it took to be a good football player already at that point in his life, but how he evolved as a leader has been what has taken him to a whole other level.
After that happened too, I made a promise to my mom that I'd never do that stuff, because I knew that she's already lost one and I couldn't see her go through what she already went through.
Every day these kids are faced with choices, and so I had Brandt share with the team what he's been through and open up, and it's good to hear, for these kids to hear from somebody that they trust, that they love and respect, and Brandt is one of those guys, when he talks, everybody listens.
I just try to be the right role model off the field, try to teach kids that from my experience, what I've learned and what I had to see, that it's not something you want to put your family through. all that anger that was built up into me and all those emotions and stuff, that I can take that out on the field, on defense especially, get to the ball and play like he did.